merchants or otherwise. Still, North Korea persisted. Then, in December 2015, the United States imposed even more sanctions atop of the UN's after North Korea boasted it had patched up and reactivated a previously mothballed nuclear plant. This batch of sanctions stopped about $800 million in exports, including coal and copper, from entering the country. Nevertheless, Pyongyang persisted. In fact, the regime run by young dictator Kim Jong-un has not only managed to continue building and testing nuclear weapons, it has actually been able to perfect them as well. Now, the country's continual weapons propaganda machine has left the Western world wondering, look, just how does North Korea make money? How are they financing these things? Well, there are actually a few answers to that question. And taken together, the explanations paint a portrait of a totalitarian government that ultimately considers the advancement of its nuclear arms program far more important than the well-being of its citizens. So with that in mind, let's take a look at how North Korea truly makes its money. Well, one way it does it, is through its new favorite play uncle. I'm talking about Russia, okay, and its stepfather, China. Now, through China, North Korea's economic bedrock is indeed solidified. And China accounts for more than 80% of North Korea's foreign trade. Specifically, North Korea's biggest source of Chinese income comes from the millions of tons of coal it sells to Beijing every year. The North Korean coal industry accounted for roughly a third of all official exports to China in 2015. Earlier this year, on February the 9th, China went so far as to halt all coal imports from North Korea for the rest of the year. This ban was in response to the assassination of Kim Jong-un's older half-brother, Kim Jong-nam, in Vietnam. Nam was a close ally to the Chinese leadership. Then, however, the idea of Beijing really clamping down on trade with the Hermit dynasty known as Korea often sounds tougher in rhetoric than it truly is in practice. You see, the objective of the coal ban is clearly not to bring down the North Korean regime, okay, but to sort of, if you will, give them a slap on the wrist. The truth is, the big red dragon talking about China doesn't want to crush the economy of its neighbor because North Korea is a geographical buffer between Beijing and U.S. ally South Korea, okay? But even if China were to further cease its economic cooperation with North Korea in the near future, the Hermit dynasty would still have its play uncle, Russia, to fall back on in order to maintain its cash flow. You see, Moscow wants access to North Korea's rich mining industry as well as its industrial infrastructure. And in fact, on November the 8th, 2014, Russia vowed to invest $25 billion in North Korea over the span of 20 years. In exchange, Pyongyang promised Putin special access to the country's mineral sector, which provides raw materials like ores and concentrates that Russia desperately needs. Russia also keeps North Korea afloat via the use of what's arguably considered by westernized nations as legalized slave labor. North Korea exports hundreds of thousands of workers to Moscow each and every year. And the lion's share of those exported laborers' wages go right back into the North Korean government coffers. You see, and while government-backed slave labor and wage stealing might seem inconceivable to Westerners, it's simply common practice for North Korea and par for the course. Okay? In fact, Kim Jong-un uses far trickier schemes to make money as well. Listen to me closely. Cyber hacking. That's right. North Korea has made serious advancements with its global cyber crime front as well. For example, Pyongyang was reportedly behind the $81 million cyber theft of funds from Bangladesh's account at the New York Federal Reserve in February 2016. This got very little media coverage. Once again, $81 million was stolen via cyber theft of funds from Bangladesh's account at the New York Federal Reserve in February 2016. And just last June, news broke out that the country was also responsible for hacking more than 140,000, that's 140,000 computers at 106 South Korean firms and government agencies. Now, the cyber criminals were believed to have planted malicious code in preparation for more serious attacks in the future. So, cyber hacking is another way that North Korea just steals money right out of other governments' accounts. And a third way I want to tell you how North Korea finances their nefarious affairs would be on top of its massive computer hacking campaign. North Korea employs numerous front companies for agents and foreign banks worldwide in order to move illicit money. Now, these front accounts leave little to no paper trail back to the regime. One such company, recently identified as a sham setup called Glocom, a Malaysia-based corporation that claimed to sell battlefield radio equipment, okay? It was found that Glocom didn't actually exist, where its website claimed it was located. No one answered the door there, and the mailbox outside was stuffed with unopened letters. Instead, the sham radio system manufacturer was actually controlled by the Reconnaissance General Bureau of North Korea. That's the Korean intelligence agency responsible for overseas operations and weapons procurement. There are numerous ways that North Korea evades UN and US sanctions these days. Sanctions that, again, were imposed to prevent the country from expanding its weapons of mass destruction development. But contrary to their prohibitive intentions, North Korea continues to be touted as one of the weaponized countries that it continues to push forward military advancements, much to the chagrin of the rest of the world. North Korea, rogue nation extraordinaire.